The worst clients I get in my gym are the 35-year-old guy who played high school football. And it's not because what he did on the field. It's because he had his geometry teacher teaching him how to lift weights.
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, Mark, we got a lot we're going to talk about. You've had several actually, I would say the Highland and the Strongman, we're just going to say that's the same chapter.
Yeah.
But they're distinctively kind of different. So 3 distinct chapters throughout your life, where through some of the podcasts I was listening to, a reoccurring theme from the earlier ones is every athletic endeavor you've always done because of scratch, snatch, or shame.
Man, you dug deep.
Yeah, so elaborate on that one because I've been waiting to talk about this.
Yeah, so scratch, snatch, or shame. So, so when I was younger, like I'm sure you went through the same thing in the 80s, 90s, wanting to lift to get big and everything. And it was just to impress the girls, you wanted to get jacked. And, of course, by getting jacked, all these girls will just start falling over you, which we only impress each other. We never impress any women with this stuff. So that was, snatch. I was looking for man, that's a horrible word for me. I am sorry. But that's what I was looking to impress when I was younger. And then, as you started training, I got into like Highland Games where, it was a paid sport, so, I was training as a job, that was paying my bills. So, there was my scratch, I was looking for that. And then, we didn't have internet for most of my career. So, we would send text videos to each other of training, Craig Smith from down here in Dayton, he did like a 600-pound Zerker squat. So, I wasn't going to lose to him. So, I do 610 and send the video back to him, and that's how we improved. It was just, we didn't want to be the low man on the totem pole, so we would just keep training. So, snatch, scratch, or shame,
When did the Highland Games come into the fold? Because as a kid, you did all different types of sports.
Yeah.
Then, was it while you were in high school or after high school?
Yeah. So when I was 16, my best friend, who was like 3 years older than me, he got into it just randomly. And we were both shot putters, and I kind of followed him into it. And, was doing track and field and football, and then was doing this Highland Games stuff during the summer. And then like the first day, I actually competed in Ohio. I go out there and there's a pro class. Well, damn it, man, I want to be a pro. I don't want to be an amateur. So I just started training for that. And again, no internet back then. So you're just trying to like talk to guys and
So you were exposed because it's through track? Was that how it was?
Yeah.
I didn't even know Highlands Games even existed until like 2000 or something.
Yeah. So this was probably 91, 91, something like that. And, it's got this active pro class where these guys weren't going anywhere unless you paid all their expenses and then gave them prize money at the end, per diem. And, I'll take that any day of the week, let me be a pro athlete and get to compete. That just sounded fantastic to me. So
with still kind of confused about the whole thing because it's crazy to me because I'm in this powerlifting sphere, right? And you always want to get bigger, get stronger, but you're not making any money. Right. Then I didn't even know this thing existed. Then you find out later that you're making money doing it.
Yeah.
And but from when you first got in, it sounds like everything was like a pro-am. There was like the pro, but it wasn't it was probably bigger back then though. How was it divided when you went to compete, say for that first time? Because you see the pros there.
Yeah. So you would show up at 8:00 in the morning for the amateur competition. And, we would compete, and then 2 hours, 3 hours in your competition, the pros would start showing up. And I didn't even know there was a pro class. And, so, the pros are getting ready. And then what they would do to the amateurs is they would say, we need you to stay around and shag weights for the pros. So the pros would be throwing, we'd have to bring their weight, which was a great way to pay your dues. They don't do that to you anymore, but all they had was a pro class and an amateur class. And to be honest, I always thought it was crazy myself. Here's you guys powerlifting. You're getting in all the magazines. You're getting world championships. You're squatting 1,000 pounds, and we're doing this stupid sport where we're standing out in the field throwing sticks and stone and making decent money.
For those that don't know, what are the events associated with that?
Yeah, so you have 2 stone puts, and sometimes you have 10 events over 2 days, or some days you have 7. And it all depends on the competition. But you had 2 different stone puts: an open stone put, which is something that you would see like in the Olympic Games, and the shot put. The standing stone put, the Braemar stone put, which is a much heavier stone thrown like a shot put, but you weren't allowed to move your feet. You had 2 weight throws, which were similar to the discus. You have 2 hammer throws, which is like the Olympic hammer, the wine portion of it. You weren't allowed to move your feet. The caber tosses, which is the one everyone knows, which is the one that looks like a telephone pole. Sheaf toss, which is a bag of straw with a pitchfork you have to throw over a bar over your head, and then a 56-pound weight for height, which is just what it sounds like, a weight with a ring attached to it. You throw it over a high jump bar.
Now, was the coverage of all that just in Milo magazine?
A lot of it was in Milo, but then ESPN had a Ultimate Heavy Athletics for a while, so they were covering some of the biggest competitions in the world. I don't think I might not have been a pro when that happened. Maybe a higher end amateur, maybe lower end pro. I wasn't on those shows. It was a little bit before my time, but yeah, Ultimate Heavy Athletics. It was like, ESPN, when they were doing some weirder competitions, but yeah, it was pretty big and everyone seemed to dig that.
When you did your first competition, I suppose it was this competition,
yeah, games.
Games. When you did the first games, what was your weight and how long did it take you to turn pro?
So I was probably 16 years old. I probably weighed 190 pounds. And then, so I always expected to go to college for track and field. That didn't work out. I went to University of Toledo. Didn't really pan out with the track, as far as giving me money to do it.
When were you there?
1992 was my freshman year. So like after the first year where they weren't going to give me a track scholarship, I came home and I said, well, I could go back and try to get a track scholarship, or I could just try to turn pro in this. So I started really putting my effort into that. And maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years later, I ended up turning pro. And the way that back then it happened is you went to the East Coast Championships in Virginia. And if you were like good enough to do that, you decided to turn pro. You didn't stick around in the amateur class. That was considered to be, beneath you. And give the amateurs a chance to come up and develop. So we would just turn pro. And then it was just a matter of, hey, I'd like to turn pro. Here I am. Do you want me to come to your competition? And I had an old pro tell me, hey, no matter what, if they invite you to their games, show up. I don't care what it is. And really my first pro games was this competition in Canada. And Chatham, Ontario was like the first one of the year. And they called me the night before and they said, hey, can you be up here tomorrow for the pro class? I was like, yeah, so I just threw a bunch of stuff in my bags and drove north. And then after that, every time someone had a spot open, they would call you. And before long, I was competing all summer long from mid-April to Halloween. So
now when you were an amateur, were you competing the same frequency?
Yeah, no, nowhere near. So as an amateur, I would compete at the Ohio Games, which at that time was in Oberlin, Ohio. I might do Detroit, Ligonier, and then, always try to make that games in Virginia. And so really maybe like 3 times a year tops.
Okay. So then when you turn pro, your season starts around April and goes to October.
Yep. Yeah. Mid-April to Halloween.
Like every other weekend?
Yeah. Every weekend or every other weekend. So you're looking at 20 plus games a year. And it was great, man. You're just traveling all over the place. And it was getting paid to go on a road trip with your buddies every weekend and throw weights in front of crowds. And at the end of the day, they give you a bunch of money.
Now, if you were out of the top 3, were you still getting paid?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So they would pay all the way down. There were some games that, you'd have to be in the top 5 to get in, but they would pay all the way down. And I would just not go to a games unless they were paying my mortgage payment or my car payment every month for a while there.
Now, I would assume that most of these games are associated with like fairs, Oktoberfest and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's where I'm trying to figure out where the revenue is coming from.
Yeah, it was all the gate. You would have, like, Detroit was sponsored by the St. Andrew Society, which is a super wealthy Scottish society, but most of it was just from the gate. Nowadays it's not like it was. I like to say that we competed in the golden age of Highland Games, where, not that the guys are bad now, so like the top guys now are really good, but back in my day, it was a much deeper field of good guys. And the reason is because there was a lot of competitions and a lot of money. Nowadays they're not paying as much. And I think some of these athletic directors and competitions said, well, we'll just have amateurs and we don't have to pay them. And you just don't get as good athletes out of that.
That would bring more revenue for the pros, though.
Back then we were making decent money. I don't think they make the same kind of money we made, in the early 2000s, nowadays. I'm not sure about that, but, the national championships in Bethlehem was always a huge deal. You wanted to be in that top 10 so you could go there and because that was a big paying game. So,
well, something that's interesting, because it's one thing I've been thinking about a lot recently is just the career length of strength athletes.
Yeah.
Where, I love open powerlifting because it has all the data points there for almost everybody that's ever competed in powerlifting. And it seems like you're going to have the fast attrition rate of the people that just compete once and leave, or compete once or twice. And that's going to be the majority of probably all strength sports. And then you'll have, if you can pop off within the first 2 or 3 years, and that seems to be anybody that's going to get in the top 5% does pop off in the first 2 or 3 years. Then you have around 5 to 10 years that you're going to be, anything after 10 years is kind of like just bonus years.
Yeah.
Holding on or whatever it's going to be. But here's where it gets interesting when we're comparing these sports. In powerlifting and bodybuilding, you might compete twice a year. So if you finally realize, oh shit, I have a potential to do something really big here, you're already 5 years in, you might have 5 left, you have 10 more opportunities. And they're not going to go well. That's not how competitions work, right? So out of the 10, maybe 30% go the way that you want. Now you're in a sport to where that season you're competing between 15 and 20, you do it for 10 years, that's well over 100 competitions. So your likelihood to sharpen the skills of the competing is way higher. And that is a big component. Yes, you have to be strong, but you have to be able to display your strength. So in one season, as the Highlands athlete, you're getting more competitive exposures than most of the competitive powerlifters and bodybuilders get in their whole career.
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, absolutely. And I ended up doing it for 17 years. So, it doesn't take, I don't think Highland Games takes nearly the toll on you that powerlifting does. You're always putting 5 more pounds on. You're always trying to push that. And to put 5 more pounds on an elite squat is just, unfathomable.
Yeah, but not every time you're going out are you trying to best your best.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's, I'm going to make an assumption here. There's probably several competitions where you didn't have to throw as big as you.
Absolutely.
You just had to throw to win.
Yep.
Or you felt like shit and it's like, whatever, I'm going to be third. So it's
not third place money. So
you'll get third place money. Yep. So this happens in Olympic weightlifting too. A lot of the times, because there's more frequent competitions, they're just going to lift whatever they need to lift to qualify or to move on or to get paid for the world record, or they'll chip it and so forth. And it makes me wonder if, when I first started powerlifting, it didn't cost $200 to enter competition.
Cost that now to
It's
do that?
it's crazy
Jesus
like that.
Christ.
But it's like 20 bucks,
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, it's like 10, 15 competition. You're competing all the time.
Yeah.
And the reason for it was just the exposures. It wasn't to, well, I guess if I could have broke a PR, I would have, as we all would. But a lot of times it's just not that case. And it makes me wonder if more exposures would help, those athletes with those more frequent or less frequent bouts would help them competitively, because man, I'll still see advanced lifters dealing with competitive shit. Like they don't know how to control their nerves.
Yeah.
Like everybody's going to you're always going to be
Sure.
nervous, right? But you just like, this is normal, whatever. And you just kind of keep going.
Yeah.
Where they're like freaking the fuck out about it. And it's like, you've only, and in my head now, it's like, man, he's only competed like 6 times.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's really interesting. But it also brings up because I'm sure with each one of these competitions, you're not making big money.
No.
Right. You're making enough money to do your sport.
Yep.
Right. Just to kind of get by.
Yeah.
With that. That's never, and this is the criticism that the powerlifters and other strength athletes will have. They all want to get paid, but they want to get paid 40 grand. It's like, you guys were able to live off what you're getting paid because you're competing 20 times a year.
Yep. It was 20 times a year. And we knew, like, I'm not going to go fly to a competition if I'm only going to make $400. So,
yes.
And we knew all the athletic directors, we knew what the things paid. The other thing we knew is, if you go to one competition and they've got really good weights, maybe they're really flyers, quote unquote, that that you have a chance to throw a PR on, you planned for that. I'm really going to push the weights in my training for these couple of weeks because I know, Georgetown, Ontario is coming up and I can really get after those weights. And at the end of the year, the whole point was to get to Bethlehem, to get to the national championships. And you had to do that through a ranking board where, you had to get points for how far you threw different implements. And so you knew these weights coming up were going to be real flyers. So I'm going to really push the weights this week. Oh, there's a good stone coming up in 3 weeks. I'm going to really practice my stone putting and try to get that. So maybe you weren't going to win. You were going to get points towards nationals. And, towards the end of my career, I was a caber tosser. So you got a lot of points for caber. So I would get in competitions just because I had so many caber wins, throughout the year, which, it all became a little bit of a strategy. But, talking about guys freaking out, it would be funny because this was every weekend for us. We'd be literally just sitting in folding chairs waiting for ourselves to throw. And some of the young guys are doing push-ups, or, trying to get psyched up. And it was never like that for us. We would throw and immediately just go sit down and just start bullshitting again. There was we've seen it so many times, So.
Well, they're long days too.
Long days. Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah. You're looking at 8 hours in the heat and, that.
Well, if it's multiple days too, and these are part of festivals, how frequently were you hungover?
Yeah. So it is not a good sport to be like have married and be family and have a family. Cause you hit it right on, you would go and you would compete all day. And then that night they would bring you over to the beer tent. Everybody wanted to buy you beers and everybody wanted to sit on your lap, and that kind of shit, so it was not, matter of fact, when I met my wife, I retired, right when we got married. I was like, all right, I'm done with this shit, because you're hungover sometimes. You're dealing with women who, are kilt groupies, for lack of a better term. It just wasn't conducive with a married lifestyle. And, you're on the road every other weekend and it just wasn't cool, but it was a lot of fun when I was younger. That was for sure.
Yeah. What was that? What was the heaviest you got body weight?
312 pounds. Me and Carrie Overfelt weighed ourselves. We were actually at a talk that Louie was giving at Vanderbilt. It was Louie and Joe Ken. And we went over to Vandy's. I don't even know how we got into the Vandy weight room, but they had a big scale there, and we had been arguing who was fatter. So we got on there. Both weighed out at 312 that day. So.
And how long did you carry that weight?
Oh man, probably 10 of my 17 years throwing. I probably would have thrown better at 265, 270, but mass moves mass was the thought, and yeah, 312. And man, I felt like crap the whole time, but I guess I don't, compared to my body weight, I wasn't strong, but I felt strong. I've lifted big weights, so.
How did you lay your training out through, say you're pro for 3 or 4 years? So your skill development with the implements is good, better than good. So you don't need a whole lot of time on that, to be able to build that skill. You still have to be strong, right? And I'm going to guess, based upon knowing your history, that you were stronger than you really needed to be.
Yeah, for sure.
But how did you lay the training out?
Yeah. So this came right from Louie. We at that same, I always tell this story. So at that same seminar he was given, I had gone down to Westside probably at that time, like maybe 5 or 6 times. And Louie would know my name if he put a gun to his head, but he knew my face. And he's sitting in the hotel room, or in the hotel lobby at this hotel we were all staying at. You can just tell he's just sinking into the couch. People are coming up and talking to him and shaking his hand. He just did not want to be there. And we walk in, and right away he lights up because he recognizes our faces from being at the gym. And we're over there, and I went up to him and I said, Louie, you want to get the hell out of here? I said, we'll take you to dinner. He's like, yeah, let's go. Him and Doris. So we get him in the van, and I'm like, Louie, we're in Nashville. We'll take you anywhere you want to go for dinner. There's tons of great food down here, and anywhere you want to go, it's on me and Carrie here. And he goes, I've never been to a Hooters before. So I said, you want to go to a Hooters in Nashville with all this? Yeah, let's go there. So we took him there, and he gave us like a 3-hour seminar where he didn't shut up the whole time on how we should set up our training and what we should be doing. And I just took everything he said to heart, and I set up my training. Monday and Tuesday were my max effort days, and I wanted to test. He wanted me to test the front squat and the sumo deadlift for my lower body, and for my upper body, he wanted the push jerk behind my neck. So I basically just did max effort work on Monday.
Why, did he tell you why the push jerk?
Udo Bayer, who was a German shot putter, supposedly had like a 600-pound behind the neck jerk.
Okay.
And so I think he thought that was.
I can rationalize the other ones, that one I'm kind of like, could you even do it?
Yeah. Well, at
320.
Oh yeah. I did a 405 one eventually. Okay. But Monday, so during the season, Monday and Tuesday, I'd hit my max effort hard. And then on my dynamic days, I would throw. So it was 2 days a week lifting, 2 days a week throwing. And then once the season ended, I would add in speed work, so I would do my normal speed work, my squats and my box squats and deadlifts. And I would do a speed bench, which I probably should have focused more on, maybe a military press or a push press behind the neck or something, but it worked. And I think that's why Louie was okay with me and Carrie, was because we were guys who were not power lifters, and he seemed to be really interested in how it was going with our throwing.
Dave Tate here from Elite FTS to talk to you about bands. We've been a supplier of bands for almost 2 decades now. So I've known my way around the band landscape. When I'm talking about bands, I'm talking about floss bands, long bands, short bands, bands you can use for resistance training, mobility training, body weight training, and flossing. One of our most popular bands, or actually our most popular bands, are the long bands. The long bands are typically used the most with squats, bench presses. Our floss bands are bands that you wrap around the joint to be able to help with mobility, circulation. And the short bands are designed for shorter range movements, bench press, deadlifts, and a lot of times people will use them with resistance machines to help accommodate the strength resistance curve. Head over to elitefts.com and look for bands in the toolbar or blowout menu. Well, you're a strength athlete, where when you were telling that story, because I did a lot of those seminars with him.
You were his interpreter.
Yes,
He always had an interpreter.
Yes. And when they were university type things, you kind of hit the nail on the head. He at a certain point, he just didn't go anymore, but he looked forward to doing them. But as soon as as soon as the questions would start, his frustration level would just go and go and go and go to a point to where as soon as you were like the scapegoat, it's like, oh my God, finally somebody that actually knows how to train that.
Right.
So, and then he's going to double down, on being able to help those people because you understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
And what the funny thing about all that was, did you listen to his presentation at all?
Yeah.
So a lot of the times it was so far over whoever the audience was, because he did one time, and it was I think it was at the University of Pittsburgh, and we're driving up there, and I said, "What are you going to speak on?" And he's like, "We're going to talk about," because at the time we were playing around with this crazy Circumax thing with ridiculous amounts of band tension and chains and weight releasers.
Right.
So like a plate per side, maybe 185, then 500 pounds of band and weight release. It was ridiculous. It didn't work either. But so he was going to talk about this, that this huge accommodating resistance with, maximal eccentric overload. And so he starts talking, and these are students.
Yeah.
Like second year students. And I'm trying to tell them as we're going up there, they don't even know what a box squat is.
Right.
So you're going to talk about this wave that we're doing with box squats. They don't get what a box squat is. And he had no ability to read a room. So it's probably the same case here. Like nobody's paying attention after 5 minutes. They're just like doodling shit and just looking around. Then he'll get frustrated, then leave. These people are so fucking stupid. They don't know. The future strength coaches are just fuck. I'm sure you heard the same thing, right? Over and over and over. But then
they forgot about strength.
Yes. If anybody would walk in kind of like what you did, it was kind of like, oh, thank God. Let's get out of here. Like break us out. Like we'll meet you around back and go out the back door and just exit and then go talk about the training with that and he loved that because when he would sit down and like lay those things out with you, you can see where the genius kind of lies.
Yeah. And that was what the shame of him was, that in his time that I don't think enough people realized he was a genius and he needed that interpreter,
Well, he needed to speak more openly about what he was telling you to do, because the general interpretation was just do everything that Westside does.
Yes.
I'm like, that's not what he's telling these guys that are in these different sports or football coaches and all that. And I pushed so hard. Tom Berry's been able to, was the one to actually get him to actually do it. Because I kept trying so hard, like, Louie, just write about this, take your conversation, write that. And he wouldn't do it. And I'm like, it's going to broaden everything.
Yeah.
And so I failed. And then, Winning failed, then AJ Roberts failed. So then Tom Berry was able to actually be able to do it to where you can see, and because he would listen to you too, when you take what you would say.
He was definitely,
he wouldn't listen to us, but he'd listen to anybody else.
The wheels were definitely turning. He was asking us a ton of questions because I don't think he knew what Highland Games were, but he was definitely interested in what we were doing, and he knew throwing, he knew throwers, and I know he'd spend a lot of time. Judd Logan was a mentor and a good friend of mine, and he was very interested in Judd and what Judd was doing and how Judd was putting, his stuff that Louie gave him into application. He was really interested in that. With
that base in there, which was basically just max effort dynamic, just standard conjugate with, I'm going to guess, very little accessory work.
In the in season, very little. In the off season, it probably looked like, we did a lot of auxiliary work in the off season.
Yeah. So the speed work was just pulled during the season because you're kind of doing that anyhow.
Yep.
And then, so now if you had to focus on as you were saying earlier, you may have to get this caber here, or you may have to get this stone here. Then how did you weave in the being able to peak? You don't really peak the way that you're training.
You can't.
But how do you wave in trying to build that ability to have that heavier stone?
Yeah.
If it's 3 weeks, because I see what you're doing here. This is like 3 weeks out. This one might be 6 weeks out. This is just kind of like a deload thing. And so how are you changing your skill practice
Yeah.
based upon those?
So there were things I didn't practice at all. So caber was probably my best event. I never trained that one. Once you got a feel for that, you just knew how to do it. Weight for height, sheaf, I never trained at all. So basically I focused on stones, weights, and hammers. So one day that was my quote unquote dynamic day. I would focus on the stones and weights. The other day I would focus on the hammers. And then, if I knew it was going to be like a bad stone that I didn't have a prayer throwing far, I just wouldn't train that at all. And I would just focus on what I needed to for that week. And the worst case scenario, you were off for maybe a week of that event. Then you start training it next week, so you just prioritize what you needed coming up, and it worked out really well.
So if you were mentoring somebody that was the thrower back then, or even now, if I'm understanding what you said, if it's an event that you're really good at and you're always going to be good at,
Yep.
just back burner it.
Yeah.
Don't waste the energy.
Yep.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If it's one you really suck at, then you're probably going to want to double down on that.
Work your weaknesses, right?
So when you do that, are you training with lighter implements or with heavier implements?
So like for the weights, I didn't spend a lot of time on the 56-pound weight for distance. Number one, it would beat the crap out of you. And number two, if I could get, my problem wasn't strength. It was speed. So I would really focus on the lighter weight, the 28-pound weight, because the two techniques were exactly the same. So I would just focus a lot more on the 28. Hopefully that speed would carry over to the heavier one. Same with the hammers. You had a light hammer and a heavy hammer. So I would train the hell out of the light hammer, and hopefully that speed would carry over. So you were basically gaining your strength in the weight room and your speed with the implements.
Were there any, I'm sure there are, but the way I like to frame this is we're all told, and I'm sure you were when you're going through that time, there's enablers, then there's realists. And we try to surround ourselves with all the enablers and tune out the realists.
Sure, of course.
Right? And then the realists are the ones that are saying, this is stupid. You're going to pay for this 20 years later. Yeah. You're not going to remember this on your deathbed, da, 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 da. And you do.
Yeah.
Like there's certain moments either through training or through competition or a certain throw or a certain lift that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. What's the first one that pops in your head when I say that?
Right off the bat, and this is, unless you were, you're involved, it's hard to talk, understand it. I remember there was a caber in Wisconsin, and when you turned it, you got to sign your name on it. So few people had turned it at this point. And I had my soon-to-be wife, my girlfriend there at the time, and no one had turned this stick all day, and it was a big, giant stick. And I got a picture of it somewhere, but last throw of the competition, I get it up and get a good run at it and pop it, and the thing goes over and the crowd just goes insane, and my girlfriend comes running out of the crowd and jumps into my arms. And it was just, it felt like you just won the Olympics or something, Then you get to sign the name with the Sharpie on the stick, and right off the top of my head, that's the one that really sticks in my head.
Was that the last event then of that day?
It probably would have been the last event of that day. Yeah.
So how'd the rest of the night go?
Yeah. Well, it went well. It's hard to screw that up after you do something like that,
Well, it's with those events, if it was a big one like that, my only reference is kind of like the powerlifting.
Yeah.
So are you like caffeinated out of your brain? So when the event's over, you're just dead? Or?
Well, I mean, I think I burned my adrenals out.
That's where I'm
caffeine, yeah. But no, we didn't have energy drinks back then. We didn't have anything like that. So it was just your standard, whatever you had in the tank, normally. So that probably would have been day 2 of the festival. Big paying games. Milwaukee, Wisconsin was always really big money. Labor Day weekend, so the crowds were huge. Just get you fired up.
So the crowd kind of kept you going?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, because it's, when I look back to some of the best meets that I've had, it's like, you have that great feeling.
Yep.
because of all that. But then all I remember after that, just because I was so fucked up, is just laying in my hotel room,
Yeah.
still having
Yeah.
the chalk and stick 'em and shit all over
Yes.
me because I'm
Yeah.
too tired to even
Yep.
fucking take a shower.
Yep.
And feeling great, but then realizing I'm just laying here like by my fucking self,
Yeah.
and it's still worth it.
Yep.
But because I was asked the same question that you were, and it kind of boils down to this: like, well, what happened after? Like, what fucking bed? I couldn't sleep because I'm still jacked up, from the whole
Yeah.
thing. And I want to get up, but I can't because I'm fucked up. Back hurts and all this other kind of shit. Where I wonder, had we had the crowd, and then there is no going back.
Right.
You just keep going. And then the next day had to be brutal.
The next day was always tough because you had to work out all those kinks, or if you were, we had Dan McKim, who was a fantastic human being, but he was always the guy who would have like prayer services on Sunday morning of day 2. And we're like, I'm not going to your prayer service, Dan, and we'd come in all hungover, twisted, or, beat up. But the majority of the time you were laying in your hotel room afterwards and in the same situation, it was just me and the pile of cash I had next to me to
then you got to be out by 10,
Yep.
and you don't want to get out by 10. Yep.
Yeah, that was it. And the crowds, man, I tell you what, throw in front of in Bethlehem at the national championships, Celtic Classic in Bethlehem. If anyone out there has never gone to that, you're in the area, you should go check it out. I mean, they would, over 3 days, they would get 50,000 plus people there. So you're in this, it was a free festival for everybody. They just charged the vendors. And so they would shut down the whole inner city, and it would just be body to body people all around this field. And there would be 10 rows deep around the field of people watching. There's a bridge over top. People would be lining the bridges, and there's like a VIP tent where all these, rich people are in there drinking and eating, and just thousands and thousands of people. And you do the challenge caber, and everyone. I mean, it was like a rock concert. People would be just hanging off the rafters, and you can't help but get jacked up for that. It was
now,
just great.
Did the Strongman coincide with this, or did
No, it was after I retired, and I got into Strongman after that because I needed something to do. I just couldn't.
What was the reason to retire?
Well,
or the reasons, it's not just one.
So I was getting married September of 2013, and I literally retired in July of 2013. It was just like I knew what I was getting into, and one of the things was maybe I could have thrown farther, but the amount of work I was going to have to put in to throw further. And I just started a business, and I was just about to get married, and I just knew I didn't have anything left in the tank, not to throw the way I wanted to throw. And I didn't want to be one of those guys who just showed up and took some money and placed 10th. That was never going to be me. So
when you made this decision and you parted, did you, because it was part of your identity for so long?
Very tough.
So are you going through all the stages of grief to where you kind of hate the sport for a while? You got to separate for a while?
Oh, yeah. I hated all the politics, and there was a big political fight towards the end of my career where a governing body, and I'm against governing bodies of any kind, whether it's political or with sport, they were coming in and trying to kind of take over the competitions, and I wasn't into that. So I was totally burnt out on that. And I didn't know what to do with myself once I retired, which, led me down a whole bunch of different paths.
What was the first path that you want? Because a lot of strength athletes deal with this same thing.
Yeah, I'm
right.
Sure.
And you've seen some of them, right? And some will just, get fat and be drunk. A lot of them don't even train.
Yeah.
Once they leave, they're just gone because they don't want to stay around that whole circuit.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get it more than most people because I kind of suffer with the same thing, because unfortunately, the longer you're in something, you start to see behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, and that's the politics and all the other shit. And it's always in there. Where the best advice I have for any competitor is to stay on the yellow brick road and don't fucking worry about what's behind the curtain. Because what happens is you lose sight of why you started in the first place. because you're only competing as a pro, right? You're not going and really watching the amateurs to see the person succeed for the very first time.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you do 10 years later.
Yep.
Right. And you're like, man, this is actually a really cool sport. But all you remember is all the bullshit from the last part of it, and getting beat up and not being able to perform the way you want to perform, and all these other variables that are kind of all coming together at the same time. Then also realizing I kind of fucked up all my life because I didn't have this backup plan. Now I got to catch up.
100%.
You know, so there's all these compounding variables that are playing in there, and there's nobody to help guide you, right? Because you're trying to look at all the people that have come before, and they're all fucked up. You know, everything you wanted to avoid, they have, and now you're like, fuck, I'm that, and you don't want to be that guy, right? So boom, you separate. And then you start looking, you got to find a reason to train, right? So were you struggling with just finding that reason to train, and what did you embark on next?
Yeah, because training had been my life since I was 12 years old. So, you know, I got into Master Strongman, was not the same thing, you know, one of the great things about Highland Games was I get to travel with my buddies all the time, you know, and we were hanging out, having a great time. And,
that's another thing that you lose with that too.
Yeah.
Social
I don't have any friends.
The social circle dies.
You know, my best friend I just talked to him the other day for the first time in forever because he had some kind of heart condition. I was like, Jesus Christ. Every time he calls me, I'm like, who's dead? But I got into Strongman, did not enjoy that. I qualified for nationals 3 times, which is about as hard as, making a basket, with a pop can. It's not hard to do. It's very easy to make nationals. So there was no real.
Did it feel like because of the crowds and so forth that you were used to being around that it was a step down?
Yes, 100%. And, they came to me pretty early in my strongman career. I only competed for 3 years, and he was like, well, we're starting a pro masters class. And I was like, all right, what does that pay? Well, it's not, we're really not going to pay you. It's just going to be called. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not doing that. So, I did strongman for 3 years, tried to get into Masters Highland Games, which was, again, not the same because the guys, I would go out and I would throw, let's say I would go out and throw the weight, and where I threw 86 feet as a pro, I was coming back throwing 68, and I did not want to watch the weight go that short. And I was still winning. I just didn't want to see that happen. So I got out of that. I'm a white male in the United States, so obviously I have to listen to Joe Rogan. So I got into jiu-jitsu for a little while, and that was a nightmare because I can't not compete. And I'm trying to compete with 20-year-old guys, and things are breaking. So I quit that. And then I got into Strong First, which was nice because
we live in some crazy times right now where there's not a day that I don't go on the internet and I see some BS crap about this research study or this research study. This isn't new. I've been in this industry for 4 decades. One thing that's helped me is 8 years ago, the Mass Research Review started and became a godsend. The Mass Research team are professional researchers that are also meatheads. So they've done this great job of being able to take all these topics and put them into this research review that I get every month. I'm excited to partner with them. I spoke with Eric Helms about this on the podcast. It's simple, it's easy. They're offering a 20% discount to all podcast listeners. The code is elitefts20. When you join, you get the research review, which is going to be sent to you every single month that has 7 to 9 articles in there. The archive, which is 1,500 articles, thousands of videos. Just head over to massresearchreview.com and use the code elitefts20. The link will be in the description.
I considered Louie a mentor, even though I wasn't a Westside guy, but I'd gone down there a bunch of times and talked to him a bunch of times, and he had passed away. And right before he passed away, Judd Logan had passed away, who I considered my mentor. So it's like, and you're going to seminars and stuff, and it's like, yeah, who doesn't know this shit? A lot of people don't know it, but then I got into Strong First, and you met all these guys who were generally interested in training and learning from each other. And it was like, well, this is I'm actually learning stuff. I'm taking notes at these seminars, you know, which was a big deal for me. So that's kind of finally where I ended up, you know, that's what I do now.
When you're going through this transition period and you're trying to figure the training out and all the other kind of stuff, what did you ditch the body weight immediately? Well,
Yes.
First off, before we go down that route, one of the things that Louie always told me that I probably told me hundreds of times because it stuck is he always felt that if you were a successful open lifter, you should not be allowed to ever compete as a master's lifter.
I agree.
Where if you come around later and that's your exposure, and it's a different type of thing, because all it does is keep you in a game that's already taken a lot away from you.
100%.
You know, which is just going to continue to keep taking more and more and more.
Yep.
And in other sports, you're kind of told when you're done.
Yeah.
You know, track and field, you could move on, right? Because you didn't get the scholarship. So guess what? You're fucked.
Yep.
Right. But not in the strength sports.
Right.
There's always this path. And that path is great for people that end relate.
Yep.
It's not so great for somebody that's been in it for 17 years.
Yeah.
You know, that's trying to find their way through.
And you're taking that some 40-year-old guy who comes out of the woodwork and wants to throw Highland Games. He goes into the master's class, and here I'm taking his stupid medal away from him because, you know, I'm a retired pro who's throwing 20 feet under what he's capable of at one time. And this poor guy doesn't get to get that medal because here I am taking it. What the hell do I want that medal for? You know, like.
So while you're doing this master stuff and all this, I'm going to assume your weight's still up, your body weight.
So at this time I was probably down to like 260, 250, but eventually.
Well, you're kind of down, but you're staying in striking range to get back up again.
Well,
so you're not really committed.
I got invited to go over to Masters World Championships, which again is not hard to qualify for. But I wanted to go lift the Husafell stone because it was in Iceland. So I wanted to keep my body weight up and, you know, I'm training really hard for that. And, you know, and I went over and lifted it, didn't make the full trip around the goat pen, but I carried it a distance. And that was one of those times where it was like, oh, this is really cool. I'm basically in Iceland looking at this glacier, picking up this stone that guys have been picking up for 600 years, you know. Every top strong man has ever tried to pick this thing up. And it was just a cool moment, you know. And then as soon as I was done with Masters World Championships, then I dropped all the weight, you know, and I got down as low as, I said, like we were talking before this, I kind of did your route and got down to like 180 pounds and had shaved the chest down, you know, trying to look cool. And
how were you training when you did that?
You know, not that much differently. I was doing, my wife was a regional qualifier for CrossFit. So I was doing some Metcons with her, but I still kind of keeping my max effort days, you know, and then, you know, just doing some Metcons afterwards. And, you know, I switched my diet around. So that's where all the weight loss came from. And
when you first switched it, how did you switch it?
So I'm we were in Nova Scotia for a Masters. Maybe it was a Pro Games. Might have been my last season as a pro. We were in Nova Scotia. And, you know, we were eating like trash when I was that heavy. And I had something, I can't even remember what it was. I ate something, Subway sandwich or something. My blood sugar just dropped to nothing, you know. And she's a nurse, so she's like, well, you're probably pre-diabetic, you know, like you might want to like watch the sugar and the carbs. So when someone tells me like that, and kind of like when Louie changed my training around, I was like, oh, I'll just cut out every carb from my life. And just that day forward, I went 0 carbs and just the weight just shredded off me.
Now, when you did that, were the calories still high?
Yeah, they were still high. I just didn't eat any carbohydrates at all.
Well, the reason I ask is a lot of times when people do that, they go into a deeper calorie deficit than they think they are.
Yeah.
Right. So they think it's because of the keto or whatever it is, but it's actually because of both.
You're probably right. Let's say I was still getting full at every meal, but I probably wasn't taking in the calories I was before. I'd never really paid attention to that, but I was still eating until I was full, but just no carbohydrates at all, no sugars, no desserts, nothing like that. Yeah.
Did you notice I have
I
a mic.
Voice came out of nowhere.
Sorry, I forgot to say I have a mic over here, but did you notice a your training went differently with having all those carbs going down to like absolutely nothing?
So I think I'm a natural fat burner because um, I did 3 national strongman competitions, which were all day events. I did that Masters World Championships, which was a 2-day event, and lifted the Husafell stone, all being on that ketogenic style diet, and all of them fasting until after, and the reason why I fasted was because I didn't want to I never liked to compete with a belly full of food, so I just didn't eat. So I always tell people I didn't notice any difference energy wise or like performance wise, even with no carbs and being completely fasted. But that could just be me as an anomaly. I don't, it's not like I would recommend that for people to try.
So as you were before you got into the carnivore, you're trying to figure this keto shit out.
Yeah.
So did you go into the carnivore just because this became too much of a pain in the ass to figure out?
Well, I decided I was going to go carnivore after. So Sean Baker, who started that, he happened to be a Masters Highland Games guy. And before he got real famous, he had just been on Rogan, I think. And I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, Sean, like, give me the scoop on this. How do you do it?" And he's like, "Well, dummy, you just eat steak. That's all you do. There's nothing to this." So I did that for a long time. I started that in like 2017 or 18. And now I'm pretty close to that, except the only difference is during the summer. I look at it more of a how we would have evolved. So like I'm European in heritage, and when we were put on this earth, we probably would have been following game herds around the ice, not eating many carbohydrates or plants at all. But then as things would thaw, you would find more of that stuff. So now during the fall and winter, I'm really basically just meat and eggs. Once my wife's garden starts to populate itself, then I'll start eating out of her garden as well. And then once that garden dies, I'm done for the year. So it just makes more sense to me that that's probably how we would have evolved to eat anyhow. And it seemed to have done pretty well for me.
So how fast did the weight come off when you wanted to take it off?
It's about a year and a half to fully go from 312 all the way down to like into the 180s. That was way too light. I looked skeletal. But I didn't like put the hammer down to put weight back on. I just, whatever happened. So I think my sweet spot's about 215, 220.
Well, it's for me, it was kind of a weird thing because the weight loss became the next thing.
You were really deep into it.
Yeah, it became the next goal.
Yeah.
Right. And then with the meathead mindset, you're just doubling down on all that. And then you get all the way down. You're like, stupid fucking goal.
Yep.
Right. And then it would rebound back up because the goal was just to weigh that certain amount, not to keep it.
Yep.
And that's where I ran into the issues because it was always when we train for something, we're training for this PR, whatever it's going to be, then you get it. And then you're not going to keep it. It's like, fuck it. You got to go in the off season and be able to pull it back up.
You weren't like even competing. Didn't you like do it for a lot? Like you were going to do like a photo shoot.
A photo shoot.
And then that was your goal. That was your competition, which I can totally get. I know that mindset,
because I worked with Shelby Starnes at one point and John Berardi was the first one, Meadows. And all of them wanted me to do a show. And I'm like, I'm not doing a show. I did one of those in college and I hated it for the first thing. The second thing is once I get lean, you'll see why I'm not going to do one because everything's fucking tore up.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, you can't hide all this damage.
Yeah.
That's kind of in there. And so it just became how lean can you get? And that replaced the challenge of the other thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then it wasn't the challenge I thought it was going to be. Right. Because it really wasn't that hard. You're just hungry. It's you know what I'm saying? It's just taking the mindset from this, then putting it into this. But at the same time, it wasn't sustainable and it would end up going. Oh, so did you run into those same type of issues?
Yeah. What you just said about it's just being hungry is just. And that just becomes another goal to get past. I can bear down and get through being hungry. other than the fact that I hate cardio of any kind, that was the only really hard part, was doing conditioning workouts with my wife and stuff. It sucked that, I'm doing, why am I doing butterfly pull-ups? What is this? What is the point of this? But yeah, the dieting part but I didn't get as crazy as you either. I wasn't counting calories. I was just not eating carbs. So it wasn't hard.
No, but you're looking at your body weight as that indicator.
Oh, 100%.
So let's go lower,
Yep.
lower. And that's the crazy thing, because that can turn into a really bad thing on the other end too, where you end up 145 because it's 5 pounds less than the 150.
When I started to look skeletal, and my wife was like, "What are you doing? Like, this is not good." And, I would see pictures of myself and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that doesn't look healthy." I wouldn't look at that guy and think he was healthy. It didn't matter that I had abs and veins in my abs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it didn't do shit for me. I want to talk about sodium for a second. The research shows that optimum sodium levels are about 2 to 3 times higher than the recommended levels. That's where Element comes in. For the past 2 years, I have used Element packs in a multitude of different ways. Each stick has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. There's no sugars, there's no fillers, it's just what your body needs. And it's used by the U.S. Olympic weightlifting team, Navy SEALs, professional sports teams. You'll hear how many people swear by how much Element has made a difference in their ability to not crash, to fight fatigue and cramps, to maintain optimal fluid balance, improve mental focus, help regulate stress, and support deeper sleep. They also just dropped the 12-ounce sparkling can, which is great. It's got 500 milligrams of sodium. Head over to drinkelement.com/tabletalk and you'll receive a free 8-count sample pack with every order. I've never heard anybody have a bad experience, but if you do, they'll make it right immediately, no questions asked. All right, you said you had another Louie story, so I wanted to kick off with that so we don't forget.
You might have been here. You might have been his interpreter for that one. I'm not sure. So the first time I ever met Louie, we were at I don't know the federations, but they had a world championships in Independence, Ohio, at some hotel. And it was a drug-tested competition, and Louie was just invited to come and talk. Do you know this story?
Go ahead. So, I may know parts of it that you don't know.
Yeah. So I walk in, and I'm a young kid at the time, and I got my notebook, and I walk in, and there's Louie Simmons standing in the hallway. So I walk over, and I'm just kind of standing there, and I didn't want to talk to him or anything because I'm kind of like shy and not, and so he's just already pissed off, and he's not happy at all. You could just tell. And he looks over at me just out of the blue, and he goes, "Can you believe these motherfuckers are trying to get me to take a drug test to give a speech?" And I'm just like looking at him. Yeah, they wanted to drug test him so he could give a talk at the powerlifting. He goes, "I've been on drugs for 35 years. I told him right now, I'm not competing." And he was just going off and talking to me the whole time because I'm the only one in the hallway with him. And finally they come out and they say, "All right, you don't have to take the drug test, but you have to buy a membership card." And he just lost his shit right in the hallway. It was great. He eventually got to talk and went in there, and it was a great speech, but man, it was just, he was fuming.
Oh, it was, I think it was Dr. Larry Miller that wanted him to come up and speak about the bench. So it was like a little bench clinic, and it was through the ADFPA IPF affiliate, I believe it was at the time. And so there's that, that happened there. Then it was either before or after that happened. They showed up on his porch. 2 of them showed up to actually do the drug test, right? And he didn't get paid to do this. Right. So that, and he wouldn't take anybody's, he wouldn't have taken the money anyhow.
Yeah.
It's just how he was. So now they want to charge him, to be able to speak to buy the
Right.
Federation card
Yeah.
or whatever it was, which was maybe he ended up having to buy the card to be able to speak. And then because he bought the card, that flagged him as being a member. And then they had to show up later. I think this is how this played out. They showed up like a week later. They came up and they were on his porch basically saying, we have to drug test you. And he ended up throwing the one guy off of the porch. And so this whole story is so fucked up,
Yeah.
you know, to hear it, but it's true.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more fucked up that they did all this. It wasn't even a long thing. It was like an
No.
hour maybe.
Yeah.
It wasn't much. It's like, just here's how you bench, you know, and it was ridiculously stupid. And they went on for a while. It wasn't over even after that point.
Yeah. Well, just the
I think he got suspended, you know, because he went to, it just kept going for like a year. It's like, he would come in, he's like, yeah, I can no longer go to any of these. And I'm like, because he refused to take the drug test. I'm like, this is so fucked up.
Yeah, it was definitely just an insane experience. And that was my first meeting of him. And what was cool though, was as soon as he was done and they let him do the speech, he looked at me and he said, here, call my wife. You can come down and check out the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that was like my first time. And then I had to call Doris and ask her if I could come down, you know, and it was funny. But I'm glad I was in that hallway for that.
Oh yeah,
epic rant.
it validates it actually happened, because the story is so stupid that I completely forgot about this one. That if you tell somebody, they're like, "There's no way." I'm like, "No, there was a way."
I was there.
Like,
yeah,
they actually paid people to go to his house.
Yep.
You know, which is just insane. Like, what are you going to do? Is he going to pit? I still don't understand how that was all going to play out. But it just kept. And Larry Miller, I believe, he didn't know any of this.
Right.
You know, he's just trying to, you know, help people with their bench. And he was multiple world records in the bench press, I believe. And Louie never held it against any of the people, you know, that were obviously there, because he's just there to help the people. But those people that were the Federation, oh yeah.
Governing bodies.
Oh, it's crazy. It's not even competing in the whole thing, but they're part of their whole rules of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Was because there was a time period, and I don't know how this lays out either, to where, because Ed Cohn was suspended, that if he did any seminar anywhere and somebody from the IPF went to that seminar,
I heard
they would, yes. So yeah, there was like an Ed Cohn rule. I think eventually it got overturned because everybody across all federations kind of heard about this. Thank God for the internet and social media later on, to where the backlash was so big, they realized this is stupid.
Talk about shooting yourself in your own foot, you know?
Yeah, crazy. So with Strong First, before we get into that, what was your opinion on kettlebells before?
Before, I thought they were absolutely useless.
Okay, because yes.
This is, I mean, I could do all this with a dumbbell, or, you know, like, yeah, I was.
No, that's cool, because I want to lay this frame of reference, because I remember during one of the big WPO meets at the Arnold, when it was it was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Yep.
And Donnie Thompson, I think, screwed his lower back up. So he went to the Dragon Door booth and Pavel showed him some kettlebell stuff.
By the way, I'm supposed to tell you that Pavel sends his regards.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And so he helped Donnie and Mark, and then they went to one of the clinics that he had. I think this was before Strong First.
Yeah.
And then started to implement the kettlebells and powerlifting, and the backlash these guys were getting was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it helped that they were breaking world records too. So it kind of validated all that. But for that time period, that 5-year period, what you said is the kettlebells are just getting slammed. Like, there's nothing you can do with the kettlebell. I can't do with a dumbbell. These are dumb as fuck. Meanwhile, these guys his back's better. He's getting stronger. Yeah. And I do think there was a time where some of the movements probably weren't helping a whole lot for that demographic that were being put in there. So it's important to note that, because you're going into this with this already conceived thought pattern that this is stupid. Yep. So even with that thought pattern, what brought you into that? Yeah.
So, back in the day, because I had come down here to do a podcast with you, I used to have this podcast. I basically just got tired of doing it. But on my podcast was a guy named Pavel Macek from the Czech Republic. Now, I didn't know what Strong First was. Pavel was doing this RKC, which was a different thing before he started his own. So I had Pavel Machek from Czech Republic on the podcast, and here's this guy. He was like 40 years old. He's sitting on his knees on the floor with his arms crossed in front of his chest, and we did this podcast for like 2 hours. This guy never moved, just completely straight posture, very professional. And I'm thinking this guy's kind of impressive, So afterwards, I got him. I said, "All right, tell me about Strong First. What's the story with this?" And he said, "Mr. Mark, you should definitely give it a try." So again, I'm in this space where I have nothing going on. I'm looking for the next thing. Nothing seems to be working. So I said, it's a kettlebell certification. I'll give it a shot. I'm doing some kettlebell stuff now. My technique's kind of shitty.
Did you have the mobility? Like
no,
the overhead mobility and all that?
None of that stuff. So I decide to sign up for it. And sight unseen. And then after I sign up for it, I see, there's a 30% failure rate for the certification. I'm like, get out of here. Like, how do you, it's a 24 kilo, 53 pound kettlebell. How are you failing with? So I get a hold of Pavel again. I said, "Hey, what is this?" He goes, it's very difficult. They call it the crucible. I said, okay. So I said, why don't I have you just work with me and I'll pay you and you can work with me. And he puts me through the ringer, and he's like, we have a lot of work to do, And so he really helps me along, gets me prepared for the certification. And I go there again. I don't know what I'm going to learn. I haven't talked to anybody as far as what it's going to be like. And it's tough. It's 3 days, 9 hours, and about 5 or 6 hours on Sunday. And we had gone down to St. Pete Beach to do it. And my wife's hanging out at the resort because the thing was, I was like, well, I'll go to this certification during the day. Then at night we'll go out and have a few cocktails. And I'm just broken every day. Lot of conditioning. Totally not what Strong First is known for. Like Pavel's all about 5-minute breaks and letting yourself relax and coming back. So like I'm dying. So I get done with day 3 of the certification. I ended up passing. I get in the car with my wife. My wife looks over at me. She goes, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "I'll never fucking do that again." Then I went back to the hotel room and signed up for the other 3 certifications. So it was just a very eye-opening experience. I was happy to pass that first one. And then, within a year, I got all my other certifications and qualified for what they call elite. And then...
how would you define eye-opening experience?
My mobility was absolute crap, and I couldn't just power my way through things. I had to learn how to do them correctly. And there were things that I just couldn't do. Like I couldn't get into certain positions, and I had to figure out how to do that. So just training for that, my mobility got a lot better. You're only working with for the first certification, you're only working with what I would consider a very light kettlebell. So like I wasn't going over a 28 kilos, 68 pound kettlebell that whole time. But I was in really good shape by the time it was done. I was a lot more mobile. I obviously had a much better grasp of the technique. This hard style technique really, it doesn't make the kettlebell lifts easier. I think it makes them more effective. So you're really focusing on locking your hips out and you're pulling your kneecaps up and really bracing hard as you're swinging a kettlebell. And it got, when they started talking about bracing and breathing, that became a real focus of mine going forward. And I started to think about all these great people I had in my life training wise, and no one really talked to me back in the day about bracing and breathing. They would say, make, big belly or push out against your belt, but there wasn't really much talk on how to brace properly. And I started to really think about that. Like, no one showed me how to do this. I was doing it, but I didn't know, no one ever told me how to do it. And I remember when I first started teaching workshops for Strong First, I was in Philadelphia and a really good friend of mine, and as well, Steve Pulcinella. And we're sitting at dinner before the workshop, and he said, well, tell me about what you're doing. I said, I started talking to him about it, and I said, one of the things that nobody teaches people how to do is brace properly. And I said, who taught you that when you were coming up? And he just looked off into the distance and said, nobody. He just learned how to do that on his own. And I think if you're a decent athlete, you kind of learn how to do that on your own as the weights increase. But here you have these kids in weight rooms or women in CrossFit who are, doing heavy squats and stuff, and nobody is teaching them how to brace and breathe properly. And then, they're ended up in physical therapy, and because things are broken and, discs are slipping, and it just became a real focus of mine within Strong First is to really take that bracing and breathing to the next level. So
now, how do you define the bracing aspect?
So it's not just the belly. So you have to learn how to brace your belly correctly and how to kind of pull your rib cage down. You stack your rib cage over your hips and then kind of pull that rib cage down with your ab muscles. But you have to be able to feel that all the way around, even into your lower back. So I'll do things like, wrap a thin band around them and try to get people to feel that brace, and then force air into their core. I hate that word. But to feel it all the way around. And then not just that, but your upper back, and learning how to anti-shrug and tighten up that upper back and all those things. Like I said, I was doing, no one had ever taught me how to do it. And certainly no one was teaching these kids in junior high school weight rooms how to do it effectively.
Where I think people get confused is there's different ways to go about getting people in that end position, right? To where as lifters, we would have been taught, to fill your belly with air and then push out against the belt,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And when you do that end position is going to be the same than if somebody is to flex first and then pull the air in after they flex, right? Both are the same end position, but where people will get confused is those are dynamically opposite of each one, right? And because of that, I think a lot of people just give up.
Yeah.
Or you'll have one school of thought that will hear how you just explained it and say, well, that's complete bullshit. What you're supposed to do is breathe in and then flex, right? And then vice versa. Well, this is complete bullshit, because what you have to do is you need to stack everything first, flex, and then breathe in. And I'm sitting back here, like, wait a minute. At the end, it's the same fucking result. So if it doesn't work this way for one, try the other one. As long as the sternum isn't getting pulled super high, right? That's where the meathead side will screw it up. They'll use chest up or whatever it's going to be, which can have application because it will make somebody push their head back. But if it pulls that sternum up and stretches the abdominal wall, you just defeated the purpose. But even with those guys, it's interesting because if you watch them closely, they'll do that. And then right before they actually descend, it comes right back down. And it's like, okay, so.
And well, like you just said, there's you have to be able to give people options on how to do, because I'm going to tell you to do something, it's not going to make any sense. And Noah's going to tell you how to do it, and it's going to click. We're saying the exact same thing. But you're going to have different ways of getting into that position. So I kind of will show them different variations on how to get there. And it's, with the breathing involved with it too, is kind of difficult to describe and show, but that became something for me that really clicked. Like, wow, they're really spending a lot of time. They're not spending a lot of time for guys who had backgrounds like we did, who were super strong. They want to make sure, like, the young kids that are coming up and the women who are in these, I don't want to pick on CrossFit, but for lack of a better term, these functional fitness gyms and just to make sure they're doing things correctly. And I think that's working really well for us. We're getting a really good response out of that.
Well, it's interesting because when this first started to be talked about in the way that you describe, which hasn't in some disciplines it's been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
In other disciplines it hasn't. Like in martial arts, it's been around, forever.
And I think Strong First takes a lot from
Yeah.
martial arts. Yeah.
And I can remember my own ignorance before I looked of like, what are they actually saying, is thinking and actually stating, I believe, that on the old Q&A, like, you're seriously teaching people how to breathe? Like, that we don't fucking know how to breathe. We'd all be dead if we didn't know how to breathe. Like, you're trying to teach somebody this natural thing. And because they were doing such a poor job of explaining, because for a long time it was like, here's the breathe. They weren't combined.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the breathing, here's this. And it's like, really? It's like, I think we all fucking know how to breathe. And then put 800 pounds on your back and you're going to figure out how to brace, right? So these are like all the criticisms from the very get-go. But the problem is, what about the person that doesn't squat 800 pounds? They're only squatting 200 pounds or 300 pounds. And how many times did we jack our back up when we were coming up
100%.
When we were younger, because we simply did not know that?
100%. And that's exactly where I'm going with this. The worst clients I get in my gym are, and not worst, but the most broken are the 35-year-old guy who played high school football. And it's not because what he did on the field. It's because he had his geometry teacher teaching him how to lift weights.
You're being lied to about strength training. I know, because I've been watching this happen for over 40 years, and it's gotten worse, not better. When I got online in the late 90s, the people that were being sold this crap were the same people that I grew up and trained with. Serious lifters, coaches, and people who just wanted to get strong. So I started writing articles and answering questions. My wife, Tracy, set up the business, and we borrowed $1,000 to put up a website and go to work. That was 1998. Elite FTS was never about building a brand. It was about fixing a problem. The equipment, the articles, the coaching, all of it exists because the people who needed the real information deserve better than what they were getting, and they still do now. If you train, if you coach, if you've ever been handed something that didn't work by someone who didn't know what they were talking about, Elite FTS was built for you.
And that's, you certainly don't want me teaching your kid geometry. And when my son was coming up, I would just purposely tell him, don't max out. You know what you can lift. Put 75, 80% on that bar and just put a showing up. Don't let these guys, deadlift a weight off your chest and say it's all you, or, cut your squats 3 inches short. Just don't hurt yourself, because I wasn't confident in the supervision. And, we do these workshops, and I can bring in a 14-year-old kid, and hopefully they're not going to pull everything out of that workshop. But if I could just teach them to brace and breathe properly and get them into a high school weight room, I've got a good chance of making sure that kid not only stays safe, but has some pretty good lifting for the next 4 years. Did
this Strong First, because there's more to it than just the kettlebells, which I'll have you elaborate on. Did this fulfill the itch that you have as that meathead?
Yeah, in a couple different ways. So I could get to be strong again in ways that I wasn't doing before. So I'm still deadlifting, and I can still deadlift without any problems, and I'm still pushing that weight up. Not like I did when I was young, obviously, but I'm trying to get back to a 600-pound deadlift. But like last year, 2 years ago, I decided I was going to deadlift 3 times my body weight, both sumo and conventional, on the same day. Now, I've never deadlifted 3 times body weight because I was heavy when I did it.
Yeah.
So I got down to like 180 pounds. I deadlifted 550 with both stances on the same day, took a video, got to write an article for Strong First. It was very well received. And then one of my other things I do is the bench press, which is something that, a lot of people haven't even seen. But it's something I certainly didn't do when I was an athlete, but I can still work up now. So now there's a whole new level of PRs I can play with. Last year I spent, it was a year, a month, and a day I spent doing this Simple and Sinister challenge. So Sinister is 48 kilo, 106 pound kettlebell. You do 100 swings in 5 minutes. So 10 every 30 seconds, one arm swings. You take a minute break, and then you have to do a get up every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. So right, left, right, left. So the whole workout takes 16 minutes. You do the whole thing with the 106-pound kettlebell. And if you do it in front of judges, you're considered sinister. I just did the workout. The poor guy who judged me was like, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. And I'm just broken, like stuff does not look nearly as pretty as the 25-year-old guys doing it. So, and I knew that my standards weren't going to be what they needed to be. But just the fact that I got to spend a year focusing on a goal, athletically at 52 years old, was very cool for me. And it was a challenge. And, but the other part of that is I'm getting to learn again, and I'm getting to teach, which has always been something cool. So now I get to travel all around and teach these workshops, and get paid for them. But no one was interested in that. Like trying to say, hey, I'll come to your gym and teach you how to do this, and no one could care. But Strong First does a really good job of promoting you. So now I get to travel all over the country again, like when I was throwing, and I'm going to these gyms, and people are very receptive, and we're teaching them things that you and I think that everyone should know and nobody knows. What
are the main pillars of Strong First?
So you have kettlebell, body weight, and barbell. And that's the three modalities. So we have workshops and certifications in the kettlebell. So your SFG1, which is your basic kettlebell certification. SFG2 is a little bit higher end. The Strong First body weight certification, and the SFL, which is the lifter one, which is one I teach most, or I don't teach it, I assist at most often.
So with the barbells, what are the barbell lifts?
So you do they show you, I'm trying to think of the testing. The testing, you do deadlift, back squat, bench press, and military press. But they also show you the front squat, the Zerker squat. They show you both stances in the deadlift, bench press, floor bench, military press.
All right, then the body weight?
Body weight, you have to test out in the one arm, one leg push-up, pistol squat, and pull-up. That was the hardest one for me to do. And I waited till the last certification to do that one. It took a lot of training.
And I was going to say, that seems to be the hardest of the three.
For us.
Yes. But actually for anybody, right?
Well, the light guys, like a lot of people wait and take the SFL last, and because they don't think they can make that max deadlift or military press.
But so the barbell lifts have weights associated with them?
So and I don't know them off the top of my head, but like they're going to test you. Day one, you come in for the SFL. It's like, get your registration, get your body weight. Okay, we're maxing out in the deadlift and bench press. So you go out and you do those max tests, and everyone's horrible. And then throughout the weekend, we're going to teach you how to be better at it. And then we're going to give you probably another shot at it at the end of the weekend. To anybody else want to try this again? And a lot of them will pass then. So those two are the maxes. And then you do a 5-rep test in the back squat and the military press at like maybe your body weight or a little bit higher than your body weight. Pavel actually calls it not the strength test, but the not so weak test. So none of this is going to be impressive, but it's.
Well, I'm interested now, because if you're bringing them in and then you're testing them, then you're retesting them after teaching them the technique. I'm going to guess that there's a big difference between.
Oh yeah.
Right now, this is the point I want to put out, because I always place an overemphasis on technique, right? Because better technique is less injury, it all kind of falls through there. And bigger weights. And they didn't get stronger. Actually they got weaker.
You're right.
Because they're doing all this stuff over 2 days, but yet their bench could be 50 pounds more. Or their squat 50 pounds more. And those are probably average numbers, right? Like 30 to 50 pounds more.
Especially like in the deadlift, for sure.
Yeah, on the deadlift, for sure. And they didn't get strong. I mean, it's great for testimonials. I came in and put 50 pounds on my deadlift.
One day.
Yes, but that's the importance of technique, though. Also, the difference in what it looks like. I mean, you can look at I'd be scared on that first day, And
what we will do is we will shut you down. If it looks like, holy crap, we'll just shut it down and say, we're going to teach you this and we'll come back. But as long as they're within reason.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing anything crazy. We'll let them go and let them fail and let them come back. And
Now, what's the progress look like after that? So say the next year they retest, or you have the opportunity to be able to retest them. How much better are they on those lifts after that? I guess, does the technique hold?
yes, yeah, because it's not anything super. It's not like us working with a really high level athlete. These are beginner to intermediate lifters. They learn just the very basics that they did not have at all. So for the vast majority of them, it will hold. And if they fail that weekend, they give them, I think with this SFL, we give them 6 months to continue to train, video yourself, and send it to the master instructor who's running it, and he'll judge it then.
With the deadlift, with them coming in, what are they screwing up the most?
Hips too high, a lot of times. So they're getting almost a straight leg deadlift. A lot of back rounding. A lot of times it's the chest up. So they're in that really open scissor position trying to deadlift. So, most of them don't know the different grips. They're just trying to double overhand it with no hook grip or anything. So we get a lot of grip slipping. Bench press is an absolute mess. There's no arch at all. Yeah. Feet are moving. Elbows are askew. They're all out.
Squat?
Squats. So they never go super heavy in the squats. So they just do the 5 reps. Obviously, depth is always an issue. No sitting back at all. A lot of knee cave, that kind of stuff. There's no tightening of the upper back at all. All the stuff you would expect to see in a brand new person coming off the street.
Are they better with the kettlebells than they are the barbells when they come in?
So usually the entry point is the kettlebell. So everyone who comes in is interested in the kettlebell at first. They all want that SFG. And they come in, and it's always fun. So I get to do a talk. John Ingham, who's one of our master instructors, has me do the "What does strong first mean to me" talk for these SFGs, because they're always like brand new people. So I'll go and do the talk with them, but they're all very excited about the kettlebell. Most of them are very well prepared for the kettlebell when they come in, and they don't even a lot of times know about the other certification. So they come in and take that, and then you'll see them 6 months later at the next one, whatever it is. It's fun to watch them come in and be, we call them baby ducks. They come in off the pond. They don't know what's going on. Eyes are real big. They don't know what they're doing. They do that. They get their SFG. By the time they come back for their second kettlebell certification, they're pros. They are locked in. It's a much faster moving certification. This is going to sound bad, but you've whittled out that dead wood. You've whittled out the people that you wouldn't want them teaching other people how to do this. So what you have left are quiet professionals who come in and they get right to work. They know what they're doing, and the further they go down that line of certification, the better they get. And then you see them, a couple years later, and they've got that elite certification where they've done all the testing, they've gone through all the certifications, and they've retested. And now these guys they're dialed in. They're Navy SEALs, they're it's fun to watch 25, 30-year-old kids who are they're solid professional strength trainers, and it's cool to watch.
Would you, knowing what you know now, would you have implemented the kettlebells in your training back when you were doing Highlands Games?
I would have. We talked earlier about the push jerk behind the neck, which was great, and Louie did a great job with that. But I would have foregone most of my upper body training just to do kettlebells. So I would have kept the max effort lower stuff, and I would have done all kettlebells because it is so similar to the Highland Games implements that I think it would have done a lot. I think being able to do like one arm snatches or one arm swings with a heavy kettlebell would have made a lot more difference to my throwing, for sure.
If people don't use kettlebells at all, where would you start them as a starting point?
So, you can always, find videos on go to the Strong First ones because there's, there's a lot of people out there who do really goofy looking kettlebell movements. Strong First is Pavel is very, very dialed in with the technique. It has to be perfect. But we do workshops. So I teach a ton of workshops at my gym in Vermilion, Blind Dog Gym. But then I travel. We're going to Livonia, Michigan. We're going down to Cincinnati, Pennsylvania, Saratoga Springs, New York. And we're just going to be teaching the workshops. And the workshops are great. They're, 4 hours. You come in and it's just a deep dive into 2 or 3 movements, and you just get really good at those 2 or 3 movements, and we can really focus on those.
What are those movements?
It depends on which workshop you're doing. So like we have Kettlebell 101, which is swings and get-ups. Kettlebell 201 is snatches, presses, and cleans. 301 is double kettlebells, so cleans, presses, front squats, swings. Then 401 is advanced ballistics, so jerks, push presses, double kettlebell snatches. And then my favorite, which is the 501, which is your grind, so windmills and the bent press, which I love. And that will prepare you for your SFG2 certification if that's the route you're going to take. But if you want to learn the kettlebells and do them correctly and safely and make sure that they don't look ridiculous when you put them up on Instagram, it's a good way to go through it.
I just want to take a moment to let you know about our crew. What our crew is, it allows the show to stay independent, and it's the reason why the podcast is still here now. The podcast is free to listen to, but it's not free to produce. It keeps going because of the sales through Elite FTS, our show sponsors, but more importantly, our crew members. The reason I love this is for many reasons, is it keeps the show independent. So I can pick who I want to speak to. I can pick what topics I want to speak to, and I don't have to be accountable to anybody. I just go off what the crew members want and what the audience wants, and I don't have to deal with all the other bullcrap that's associated with the podcast world. In return, what you get with the crew is ad-free episodes that are released a day ahead of time. You get access to our Discord community, which has AMAs, like 60 ebooks. We try to put a new ebook out every single month. Access to our coaching community with form checks, training Q&As. It also gives you invitations to our training retreats that are out here in the gym once or twice a year. 76% of all the people that joined in 2022 are still members now. Right now, you can either go month to month or get 2 months free with an annual plan. Just look for the link in the description, look at the QR code, or search elitefts.com crew and join today. It means a lot. Would the swing be the base foundation of all of it?
Yep. So Kettlebell 101, we're teaching you how to do goblet squats. We're teaching you 1 and 2 arm swings, and because once you learn the swing and learn the bracing along with it, that hard style swing will get you into the next step. So they're nice steps to the next level.
What are the biggest mistakes you see people making with just the double arm swing?
Not locking their knees out at the top, not bracing their belly at the top, breathing in the wrong position, not packing their shoulders so the kettlebell's really pulling them out and rounding that back at the top. And these are all things that, everybody comes in and they're bad at. We just tweak you one thing at a time, and we can usually have everybody looking pretty good by the end of the day.
Are those things that you mentioned there that with fatigue, like if they start right and then after 10 or 15 reps, is that going to break down because of fatigue?
Yeah. So like when I was doing my Sinister test, if I do 10 swings on my right and 10 swings on my left, they look fantastic. Well, we're at rep 80 and 85, and my knees aren't giving in the way they used to, and I'm not pushing my hips through. So yeah, they will. But, as just like anything else, the better you get at it, the more endurance you build, the longer you can go. Now, Pavel builds in these strong first stop signs, he calls them, where, if we're supposed to do 10 reps in a kettlebell snatch, but rep 3 starts to fade, we're done. and there's no Olympic medal for this. We'll
Mm-hmm.
just dump it for this set and come back and try it again, and if you go a couple sets and you can't get the reps you're supposed to with the proper technique, you're done for the day.
So how is the programming then laid out, with a Strong First program? Is it kettlebells every day? Is it barbell lifts twice a week?
There's really no set programming. Now there are programs you can follow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't geek out on the programming stuff. That's one of the things that was so attractive to me about Conjugate was that it was different all the time. But there are programs you can follow, Rite of Passage or different ones that you can get through his books and stuff that you can just kind of follow and go step by step. That would drive me nuts. So I'm more of right now I train my deadlifts max effort on Monday. I'll do some repetition bent presses on Tuesday. I take a break on Wednesday. I come back and I do some kind of squat on Thursday, and I do more bent presses on Friday. And I'll throw in some auxiliary lifts, but that's pretty much it. So
what about the conditioning aspect?
So this was good to hear. So I'm a walk with a weight vest guy. And it was good to hear you guys talking with the Rhodes and Wendler the other day about how it was so hard to get into zone 2. And I was the same way. And I was like, oh God, thank God somebody else is talking about this, because I put my 40-pound weight vest on and I walk as fast as I can. And, I'm going for 30 or 40 minutes, but I never really get into zone 2. And I'm like, am I wasting my time? But I'm sweating, I'm breathing hard. Can't walk any faster unless I'm running. So, that's my cardio. I do that 3 times a week, and I should do it maybe 4 or 5, but now that's what I'm doing.
That's always an interesting conversation to me, because the people that are my age many of them are on beta blockers and other kind of shit, which is going to not kind of allow that.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're being told, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's like, I don't even know if they can even get there.
Right.
Right. And if they did, it's not zone 2.
Yeah.
Because they're going to pass out because they can't breathe.
Right.
So how do you gauge this? Right. And that's kind of what we were talking about there.
Yeah.
You just do it.
And that's what I just, and it was great that I heard that podcast, because it was just like, oh, what am I worried about this for? So I'm like looking at my Whoop strap and like I'm not even getting into zone 2. And it was after I heard that, I was like, great, I'm just going to walk and forget about it. I'm getting a good workout in. My heart rate's up, what the heck?
Do you notice if you don't do that other things suffer?
I don't know if I noticed that. I just know it's something I need to do, and I force myself to do it, and I hate to do it. Even the walking is, my wife wants to go for a walk in the evening. I'm like, I don't want to do that again. Let me pull a heavy deadlift. I don't want to walk, so I just force myself to do it,
What are the other challenges that you have training now?
I'm sure the same thing we all do, just mobility and stuff that hurts. What's nice is, so I was always one of these guys, not always, but in my advanced years, where I would get off the couch, the hip flexors would be so tight that I would walk in that bent over position for 10 or 15 steps before they would loosen up. I went through, we talked about Pavel Machek, who got me into Strong First, but I got the chance to go to one of his seminars. It was called Resilient. And I learned a lot of things that helps with that. So, I'm doing these stretches every day to help with my hip flexors. I've had a neck that when I turn to my right, I hear a loud cracking sound for like 3 years. I don't know what the hell that is, So some decompression stuff that he showed me for that seems to be helping with that. And it's very basic stuff to make you more resilient, So we went through that, and that was a very helpful seminar that I learned. But none of this stuff is rocket science. I think we just don't do it.
Have you found with a lot of these things, because I have, so I'm just wondering if the similar experience, that you'll find one of those things and you'll do it and then it helps, but then you don't have to continue to keep doing it at the same rate that you have. It's easier to maintain. It sucks to build it where it's where you can move,
Yep.
right? But a lot of the things I would always be hesitant on trying to do because it's like, fuck, okay, now there's another thing I need to do every single day.
Yeah.
And what I found is if I find one of those things that helps, after it helps, I can pull it out. And then just, have you found the same type
So
of thing?
when I was learning to bench press, which is, I don't have any business being able to bench press. To get into that position is very difficult. And it took me, it took me a good probably 5 or 6 months of finding exercises to work through that position that I could actually hit a good, and now I don't have to do it at all. I'm hoping I'll get that same result with the hip flexor stuff and the neck stuff where I can just kind of, okay. And then if I need to come back to it at some point, but I can just do it and then move on to something else. I've heard you talk before about the reverse hyper and how you just are like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And I was a disciple. I did my reverse hypers at least every day, if not twice a day. Now I do them twice a week, and I feel like my back's pretty strong and pretty durable. And, but if I get that tweak in my lower back, I go back and hit my reverse hypers for a while. And
yeah, fortunately I haven't had issues with it because it's not that I don't think it's valuable. I think it's very valuable for a lot of people. It's just that you do so much of it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, come on, man, when you're doing it twice a day for 10 fucking years,
right?
It's like, okay, I'm done with this. And the deadlift is another one. Fuck that. I hate the deadlift. I always hate the deadlift. Yeah. It's just a personal thing. I just hate the fucking deadlift. So I'm not going to do it. I think I pulled 135 a few months ago and just fucking, no.
Just, it was sitting on the platform. You decided to pull it.
I wish I could have seen that. I've never seen you touch the deadlift.
Fuck the deadlift. Just always, since high school, I've always just hated the deadlift. So that was one of the good things about being done with powerlifting.
Yeah.
I never need to do this again. Were there any things like that you had like that?
Yeah, the bench press. I will not do it. It hurts every time I do it. And I kept forcing myself even after retirement that I was going to keep doing it. Finally, I said, I'm just not going to do that. Now I'm not going to do anything that I don't want to do. I'm lifting heavy weights. So I get my bench presses in. I do my deadlifts and I get some squats in. I throw some push-ups and maybe push-ups or dips and maybe like a row or a face pull or something. And I'm good. I don't need to, I'm not ever going to compete in anything again. So I'm just going to do the stuff that I like to do. And it's going to make me get down into my basement and do them,
When did you start your gym?
Blind Dog opened. So I've been training people since 96. But I started Blind Dog in 2012. We originally, because my wife was a CrossFit person, we were a CrossFit gym. About a year into that, I'm like, I don't get anything out of this other than we pay them money every year. They tried to sue me like twice in the first year. You pay your affiliate fee. And I was like, oh, cool. So I announced where Blind Dog CrossFit is opening up. And they sent me a cease and desist letter because they hadn't officially, said that I wasn't listed on their website, even though they took my money and said I was okay to do. But anyhow, so we were CrossFit for about a year and a half, and then we just dumped the affiliation and started doing our own thing. And for a while there, we were still doing conditioning and metcons and conditioning, and then we got into like more strongman stuff because me and her were both doing strongman competitions, and that went well. And then during COVID, so before COVID, we were in a 6,600 square foot gym. It was huge. We had every toy you could possibly imagine. And then during COVID, when they locked us down, I was like, I needed something to do. And I knew we weren't using like a third of this space anymore. So I found a gym in my hometown, or a building in my hometown that was 3,000 square feet. I got a couple buddies. We moved everything over, got rid of everything we didn't want. During COVID, I could sell that stuff at a huge price. Moved everything over, and then I started sending out little pirate flag emojis with things, and I said, "Hey, we're open. Just come lift. Fuck these guys. We're just gonna open up. And people started showing up, and we would get people ratting us out. And the sheriffs would show up, and we're like, he's like, I don't care. I just got a call that you guys are doing this, and we just opened up. Everyone was super psyched, and now I work with, people of all kinds, but the majority are 40 and up. I kind of feel that's my demographic now, just general health and strength. And that was another good thing about COVID was I stopped getting the girls in who wanted to lose 12 pounds for the wedding. And I started getting in 50-year-old women who wanted to be able to squat their body weight, which, because they knew, they listened to Huberman or somebody who told them they needed to be strong. So that's a much better demographic. They're not deadlifting 600 pounds, but these people are actually interested in becoming strong for their life, which is a lot of fun.
Have you found over the last few years that more people want to train to get strong than they do for aesthetics?
Yep. Yeah, that's everything now. Everybody who comes in now, I don't get anybody. I mean, at least they don't tell me that's why they're training. They all tell me they want to get stronger, they want to get healthier, they want to be able to do this or do that. A lot of people want to like go hiking or skiing or, but I very rarely get people who, we get people who want to lose weight, but nobody who wants to like get jacked, none of that.
It's interesting because it's, when you look at, national trends in the fitness industry, strength and conditioning is now top.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think in my lifetime it's ever been top. It was always aesthetics or weight loss or something like, and I don't know what's created this, to be able to happen, but it's actually cool that it's going to happen because it's more obtainable for everybody. Because when you were working people, the demographic that you're speaking about, it's the same demographic I trained for a long time. And I had to start referring out to a registered dietitian because they weren't losing any fucking weight.
Yeah.
Right. So if I could push that responsibility on somebody else, but say, here's the metrics I track that I'm responsible for, I can show that progress.
Yeah.
Right. And they are all stronger and all those things move along because the training does that.
Yeah.
For this demographic, any training is going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But you'd still lose people.
Yeah.
Because their main goal was to be able to lose X, Y, and Z. And they think they're going to do that in 20 minutes once a week, which is fucking ridiculous. Right. And no matter how much you kind of toot your own horn, but I don't know what's created it, but I hope it stays.
Yeah. So this woman I have that comes in the gym, her name's Elizabeth, very, very religious, very sweet woman. She's one of my absolute favorites. This is a 70-year-old woman who just wants to get stronger. There's no argument. There's no, I heard this. It's just, okay, I'm supposed to do these dumbbell benches. That's what I'm going to do. And she's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And as far as the people who do want to lose weight, it's a super easy fix because I might not be able to fix them. But what I can say is, give me a 5-day food log. Because as soon as I say, how do you eat? They always just eat chicken and vegetables. Yeah, it's amazing how many fucking people eat just chicken and vegetables.
You can't lose weight.
Right. And it's like, okay. I say, so let's do a 5-day food log. We'll do it over a weekend. I go, look, don't be good. You're not telling me anything by being good. Just whatever it is. It's not as bad as I've seen. Trust me. And inevitably, they'll always bring it back and say, oh, this was a bad weekend. And I know this is a absolute photograph of what their life normally looks like. And it's a lot of booze, especially beer. It's a lot of processed garbage. And I say, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to increase your protein levels, lots of protein. I give them the stupid little, here's your plate. And this is how much protein should be on your plate as opposed to this little sliver that should be your, and at least it gets in there. They may not follow that direction, but they at least know now they're going to have to take some responsibility for themselves because I have told them how to eat properly and it's not hard. You don't have to get out your scale and your calculator. Just eat like this and you're going to get better. And the ones that do that get better because the training is the training. Whether I have you do, a conjugate program or kettlebells or CrossFit, the training is the training. That's the easiest part. Just show up and whatever you show up and I have you do is going to help you.
How many times are they showing up on average?
3 or 4 times a week,
That's better than I thought.
Yeah. And these are not, these are 50, 60, 70-year-old people. The best ones I have are showing up 4 and 5 times a week. But those are very rare. But yeah, 3 or 4 times a week and they're getting it in and they're doing great.
When I looked at your hours, it looks like are you training them in groups?
Kind of. So I tell my wife.
I like the way you have it set up though,
uh,
because you can have a real life.
Exactly. And that's exactly. So my wife says I live the low cortisol life. So
Yeah.
I train from 5 a.m. till about 10 a.m. And so what they'll do is if you're brand new, I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. Noah's been here for a year with me. Here's his workout. I'm going to kind of be watching him out of the corner of my eye, making sure he's doing everything right and making sure the workout's going smoothly. If he has questions, he's going to get a hold of me, but I'm going to spend the most of the time with my new people. And I only start at 1 or 2 new people at a time. So I have that ability to work with them. So I call it personal training as opposed to private training. I'm just not willing to do that young man's life where I'm there from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m.,
Well, what you find with that is in that midday, like 10:30 to 4:30 or 5, it's really, really hard to get clients that are going to be consistent during that time period.
Yeah.
Really, really hard. Where you can close during that time, open up at night, and then you just eliminate all that, which gives you back. It can suck though too.
Well, I did that for years, and I had a guy come in who was a union welder, and when he first came in, he said, "I'm retiring in 2.5 years." And so I just kind of told my wife, I said, "When Joe retires, I'm retired." So when Joe retired, because he had to come in the evenings, when Joe retired, I retired and just cut it off. I'm just going till 10:30, and that's it. What's good though is I had a background of working with like football teams and stuff. So I was doing like the high school football weight rooms and stuff where you had 70 kids in there. Watching 5 is not hard to do, you know? So it really was a good stepping stone to the type of training I do now.
So it's closed after 10:30?
Yeah,
you don't
pretty much.
in the evenings anymore?
I have a couple, I have a kid who sometimes works with young athletes in the evenings. And one of my selling points to my adults is you don't want to come in here in the evenings because it's like a zoo. There's kids everywhere jumping on stuff. But yeah, he'll come in a couple nights a week and work with some athletes. But other than that, it's just mornings for me. Then I do go home. I don't train at my gym. That's the office. So I have my own gym set up at the house. So that way no one bugs me. I don't have to clean anything. When I leave the gym for the day, I'm done. I go home and do my stuff.
So you mentioned that what your past training goals were. I think you told me what you're training for now, but I can't remember. So what is it that I
want to deadlift 600 sometime the next year. And I'd like to I just bought a 60 kilo, 135 pound kettlebell, and I'd like to do a bench press with that. So that's what I'm working towards. Just going to keep plugging away at those. If I get them, great. If not, I'm not going to hurt myself.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a moment because we do read the comments, and one of them that keeps popping up more frequently than not is, I can't believe this video doesn't get more views. Take a minute to subscribe, leave a comment, and share. It really does help. No, it's interesting because we all kind of fall into the same thing where, and I'm going to speculate a little bit here. You're putting that one thing out there because it is a little bit of a stretch goal, right? And that deadlift.
Yeah.
And for you to do it, you're going to have all these other variables in place for that to happen. Your conditioning is going to have to be good enough to be able to do it. Your mobility is going to have to be good enough to be able to get down to the bar. Your strength is going to have to be good enough to be able to do all that. And then when it happens, whatever, sometime in between October and December, it could happen, but you don't have to peak for it.
Right.
So if you start to get beat up, it's like, okay, fuck it. November, a little more beat up, fuck it. December, feel really good. October. Now the flip side of all that is every now and again with some of these things that I'll put out there, I may hit in like September. Then I'm like, fuck it, I'm done for the year. Right. So have you run into that?
So the reason why I did that Sinister for so long is because I kept, okay, I'm not ready. So I just keep bumping it. And whatever it happens, it happens, I usually have a goal in mind. I don't have one coming up, but I usually have something in like I knew when I was done with Sinister, I was going to try for the deadlift and bench press. So I need to come up with something next because I don't want to get into a zone where there's nothing coming up.
No, you don't. I just went through that. Holy shit.
What do you do with your life?
It was because I hit what I wanted to do in like November or whatever it was. I'm like, fuck it, I'll worry about the next thing in January. I'll figure it out.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
It was like February. I'm still like, no, I haven't really figured it out yet. My training sucks and everything else sucks because nothing's really anchored in there.
Because
like,
I don't know if you're like me, but I don't have anything else. Like I'm not going to, we talked about.
Well, it's got to be strong enough that you're going to do all the other things to be able to make it happen.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's got to mean something.
Yep.
And for so long, it's just been some kind of squat variation. It's like, do I really want to fucking do another? I'm like, well, there ain't nothing else I like.
Yep.
You know, so
and that's what's going to get you in the gym doing the stuff you like. But I don't. I train and I read books, and that's like I don't have a whole bunch of like hobbies or anything. Like I don't do woodworking, or like, so I better have something in the pipe ready to go. Like when I was finishing up Sinister, I started doing like the old school extra 15-minute workouts at the end because I knew I needed to build some. I couldn't just jump into heavy deadlifts again. So I'm going down for the second workout of the day about 4:30, and I'm doing some leg curls with the bands and maybe doing some, good mornings with the bands, just trying to start looking forward. Okay, this is going to be done soon. I need to move right into this next thing because idle time is not going to be good for me.
No. Well, what's interesting too is you anchor the body weight to it, which has been one of the things that I've been doing in the past few years. It's whatever it is going to be based on the body weight.
Sure.
It's going to be a little bit. Otherwise, when it wasn't anchored to the body weight, it's like, fuck it. The lift's the only thing that matters. If I weigh 280, I weigh 280.
Well, that's why I'm like 225, 230 right now because, I'm not really paying attention. But then you also have age. This is the heaviest I've ever done, this lift at this age. So, there's a PR. Just anything that is going to make it keep going.
Where do you think you are right now?
Probably. So I took a year off after I did that three times body weight with each dance. I'm probably 550, 560-ish range. Just, I haven't, I still do my max effort conjugate stuff. So I do, some elevated deadlifting like rack pulls, and then I do some reverse band stuff, and I do some deficit conventional deadlifting. So just looking at where those are, I'm probably right around that 550, 560 range. So, but no, I'd like to do it before, I'm 54, I'll be 53 in a couple months. So I'm not in any kind of hurry for it.
Yeah.
So, and the thing I'm most proud of lately is the fact that, a couple weeks ago, I was doing a heavy, conventional deficit pull, and my hamstring just didn't feel right. And I just backed off and I said, I'm just done for today, and neither one of us, I'm sure 20 years ago would have done that. No. Like, fuck it, I'll just wrap this knee wrap around it. It'll be fine, you know?
Yeah. Shit takes a little longer to heal. When
right.
It fucks up now,
so I'm not playing with it. If something doesn't feel right, I got next week. I'll come back and get it.
Yeah. I had something happen. What was it? 5 weeks ago. And we were maxing out on the Mars bar or whatever it was. And we used reverse bands. It was different. Anyway, so I ended up missing a lift, and I haven't missed a lift forever. And it didn't make me mad. Then I got mad later.
Yeah.
Because it didn't make me mad. Right. Because normally it's going to make you mad. Then it's going to provide that drive.
Right.
I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, what am I becoming now? Then it kind of recycled because I didn't get mad. So at least there was something still there, but I didn't fucking care. And for a minute, I'm like, man, I don't ever want to do that again. And it's like, ooh, shit,
Well, and that's why I stay away from like when I decide, okay, I feel pretty good, I'm going to go for that 600. That's when I'm going to do that deadlift. I won't do it because it'll fuck with my head.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss sumo, I guess, is my better stance. I don't want to miss a sumo deadlift ever in my life. Never, because it'll do anything in my training. I'll recover from that, but it'll screw with my head. I won't be as confident next time.
Well, it's interesting because I think I used to train this person many, many years ago, and I lived in German Village, and the club was in the Huntington Center downtown, right? So I worked with a lot of gay people.
I was just going to say, like, were you the only straight guy in the whole town?
Pretty much, right. And the one guy that I got to know fairly well, started talking to me about this gaydar, because I'm like, how in the hell do you know, right? So he explains this fucking gaydar thing.
Right.
Then I kind of realized there's a meathead radar. Like you can see in somebody's eyes, you know, if they're like a true, and I know you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
100%.
Because you see them through all these different strength disciplines. You know immediately when you're talking to somebody,
Yeah.
even if they're younger and they're not there yet, you can see it. There's something fucked up in their soul that they're able to be able to use, and that never goes away. Right. We got to find a way to kind of feed that.
Yep.
And it's interesting to see how you're still feeding that, but it's also good for those people that have that to realize that there's still ways you can go about it, even when, so it might help with that transition period when they can't do it anymore, because you're lost, your identity and all this other kind of shit's kind of lost. But the one thing that you love more than anything else, that challenge, that strain, you can still find ways to do it and not fuck yourself up.
Yeah.
But you got to look outside of what you think. It may be kettlebells, right? It may be 3 times deadlift. It may be some, you know, reverse band.
It's only good for you. You're the only one who cares about it. And, you know, I just remember like training back in the day. I used to train at the old Elyria Barbell Club. It was a great gym. And seeing this old power lifter and his had one arm, you know, right where it's supposed to be, and the other arm was shot way out to the plates on the other side because he couldn't get his arm, and he's still trying to squat heavy. And I'm like, God, that's not the guy I want to be, you know? I mean, I get it. I just don't want to be that, you know? And there's different ways. I mean, we're looking around here, you've got 800 million bars. There's a bunch of different ways to get you done, you know?
If you want to have a new conjugate max effort movement, you can think of something.
Yeah.
It's easy.
And I see the way you do your box squats. It's like, great. That, you know, who cares?
Yeah.
It's a high box, you know, big deal. Like you're still getting stronger. You're still progressing, you know? I mean, there's no, you know, judge next to you giving you red lights or green lights, you know?
No, it's just, I came up with that because of 2 prosthetics. This is, you're going to laugh at this, right? And so with 2 prosthetics, if I'm going to max out on something, then I want it to be I want it above parallel. I don't want it to be at 90 degrees in case one of them ever blows out.
Yeah.
I have something that's going to catch me. So the training partners aren't going to get fucking killed by the bar. I'm going to use a bar where the plates are held lower, like a spider bar, because or camber bar, the plates are lower. So if it does fucking blow apart, it doesn't fall as far.
Right.
Compared to if it was a safety bar squat, the bars are higher. Yep. Right. So it's all these things are like just to minimize the risk of if it does like blow out of socket, I'm not hurting anybody that's spotting me. I'm not hurting myself.
Yeah.
I'm reducing the damage as much as I possibly can. And what's left over after all that is that high box, reverse band, whatever the fuck it's going to be. And then it fits all those boxes. But with the mobility factor that you talked about, if I don't have something during the week that's a goblet squat or some very deep squat, then the mobility becomes a big issue because I'm not doing anything to be able to get in those ranges of motion outside of all that. Right. And
so you treat that more like your mobility, like you're just trying to, Yeah.
Because if all I did was that, my mobility would suck. I wouldn't be able to sit on the toilet. Yeah. Because shit, the box is higher than my toilet.
Right.
You know, so you have to have something to keep that mobility in there. If it's machine work or kettlebell work or whatever it's going to be able to be. Because what I fear is if you remove all that, then you're fucked. Yeah. Because then all this stuff, because for me, all this stuff got bad before it got worse. Right. Like just all the joints were all fucked up. And it's like, oh God, you know, am I going to live my life like this? Yeah. Then you find how to kind of restore some of that motion in there. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I love the bent press is because it puts me in positions where I have no business being in, or at least crazy you can do that. Yeah. I don't, to be honest, I don't know how it happened. You know, so, but it helps. It's mobility and strength all in the same thing. And it's something I've become, you know, I don't know, I'm good at it, but I'm good enough for me at it. What kind of weight can you use with that at top end? So my best is 56 kilos, which is 123. Dang. So I'm trying to go for that 60 kilo bell, which is 135. I've got a buddy over in Germany, Sven Rieger, who is, he just did an 80 kilo press, so 175 pound kettlebell, and he's looking for going up to the 90 kilo, which is like 203 or something. But he's a young strapping lad, and it's
you watch the girls do it in Strong First. The girls, they always do everything better as far as the kettlebells. The get-ups look better, but the bent presses, girl Marta over in Poland does it, and it's just like, I'm watching her do this. I'm like, how do you bend into that position so perfectly with no restrictions at all? And that's never going to be me. But
what's the craziest thing you've seen with that?
I did see, I've got a video on my phone of a guy doing a 90 kilo, 203 pound bell. He comes out. I don't know who this guy is, and I'm sure people listening to this know who he is. He's in front of his trailer. So he's got like a mobile home, and he's in like jeans and suspenders and a flannel shirt. And he just cleans this 90 kilo kettlebell up there and does a bent press with it, and then just drops it in the earth. And then you go to his Instagram page. It's like him doing that. And then there's like nothing else on it. So, he's just a monk up in the woods doing bent presses. But
were there any topics you wanted to talk about I didn't bring up?
Man, I think we've covered just about everything in the world.
Yeah, I had down here, we talked about that you've done, it has to be over 200 games.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is insane. Within the Conjugate. Any other Louie stories? Those always seem to be the best ones.
Louie, yeah. So when I started going down there, the very first time I got a hold of Doris and she invited me down. I went down once with the National Throws Coaches Association, and he invited all the coaches from the convention could come down, and like 3 of us showed up, because what does Louie Simmons know about anything?
Yep. That was
so
normal.
We go down there, and I watched Phil, why is his name? The little guy.
Harrington.
Phil Harrington. And he's doing safety squat, box squats with all this band tension on there. And he must have missed this lift 3 times. And Louie's yelling at him every time to cut it out. Like, you're done. And he's not listening. Finally, he makes it on his 4th attempt. And then he goes over, and Louie immediately has him showing us how to do these box jumps. So he's jumping up onto this like 60-inch box. He's sitting on a piece of foam. He's jumping up on another one. It was just like one of the most impressive things I had seen. And then I remember going down one time and walking in, and first of all, I'm going down there, and no one ever told me that you're supposed to work out when you go down there. Like, so I'm like dressed like I am now, and nobody yelled at me. Like, I don't know. No one told me to do that. So I go down there, and like Chuck was still there, and a very young Dave Hoff was there, and they're all hanging out. And then in the back, there's all these women working out. And so Louie's giving me and Carrie Overfeld a tour of the gym, and he's taking us around and showing us everything. And he gets this, probably a group of like 5 women back there. And he goes, he's talking about how great these guys are, because it was like Chuck and Dave Hoff. So we get back to the women. He's like, these women are horrible, absolutely horrible. And I think they were like a lot of the guys' girlfriends and stuff. He's like, none of them, they're all horrible, except for that one. She's really good. She's going to be really great. It was Laura Phelps. He's like, she's going to be really good. The rest of them are just horrible. The girls are standing right there listening to him say that.
Oh yeah.
He could care less.
No.
But yeah, it was always fun going down there. And they were always so nice. Like, when you just go down and nobody knows you from Adam, and they get done with their workouts and they sit there and they talk to you for another hour, and just, there was never any secrets, or, they were just very interested in helping you in any way they could, which from the way that Westside was always portrayed, it's like this biker gang that was going to stab you if you did something wrong, to what they actually were, was very eye-opening in a good way.
How can people go about finding you?
Instagram, I am at mvalenti100, and my gym is at Blind Dog Strong. You can check that out on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, unless you want to follow me on Twitter, where I'm going to give you libertarian rants and bully politicians and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
We'll have all the links in the descriptions. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, man, I really appreciate you having me on. This is my favorite strength and conditioning podcast. Matter of fact, it's the only one I listen to. You always have the best guests and the best people, and I was so psyched to get invited down, and I'd love to do it again anytime you want me to.
Great. Thank you. We're done.
Thank you.